Kololo.
In Kololo. Orders from above.
Dr. Wakida is asking the question and answering himself. What is there? And then he answers UB40.
NBS Frontline. The National Population and Housing Survey will be conducted in May 2024 to ascertain the number of Ugandans as well as compile other relevant demographic information.
So when these figures come in, it will help us to plan properly for different areas, because it will give us the answer. So the purpose of the counting is mainly planning.
While the census has in the past been adjourned for a number of reasons, this time around, the authorities insist it will happen come rain or sunshine, thanks in part to the planned use of advanced geomapping technology.
Paper questionnaire shall be using computer-assisted devices, popularly known as tablets, that the enumerators will be using to interview the respondents. And it is our dream that in the future, Ugandans should be able to enumerate themselves.
As the Uganda Bureau of Statistics readies to conduct this monumental task, we ask, how ready is the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to execute this charge in a vastly changed socio-political terrain? Will the data collected be used to inform decision-making at all levels of administration, or will the 2024 census be just another counting of heads? This is The Frontline. Frontline.
A very good evening and welcome to this edition of The Frontline on NBS TV. My name is Charles Mangushampagi. And tonight we discuss counting the people. The country, Uganda, will be conducting a population and housing census in May 2024. This is an exercise done every 10 years. I think the last one, which was conducted in 2014, was delayed. It should have happened in 2012. We'll need to ask questions why it happened in 2014 instead of 2012, changing the cycle of when this population and housing census is done. The bigger question is, what does it mean? Why is it important to count people? Why should we be doing it now? And what are the politics around counting people in a country? On the panel tonight, let me start with the extreme end. He was the former host of this show, namesake Charles Odongtho. Charles, very nice to have you.
Good to be here, Charles, and I'm happy to see you in my position. And,
so what position are you in now?
I think if Frontline is a baby, and it is my baby, then you are a good babysitter.
A babysitter of your baby?
You're taking good care of the baby.
So Charles Odongtho is a spokesperson at the Office of the Prime Minister, OPM, and is on the Media and Publicity Committee of the National Organizing Committee. Is it National Organizing Committee of the Census 2024? Would that be a correct description of who you?
There is an organizing committee under, there is a body called the National Census Council, which at the apex is chaired by the Prime Minister. And under that, there are a number of subcommittees: technical, management, and advisory, and then there is publicity and advocacy. And the publicity and advocacy is chaired by the ICT Ministry, where OO happens to be, and by Dr. Baremunsi Chris, and that is where I am a member as as a professional, as a technical person.
Okay.
So that's how I come to be in these things.
And nice to have you sitting on that side, not asking questions but answering questions. We'll see how that goes.
The hunter has become the hunted. So I'm in your hands, Charles.
Ofono Opondo, the man from Molanda, he's executive director at the Uganda Media Center and the Frontliner. Very nice to have you, sir.
Thank you, Charles. Good evening to our viewers, and glad to see these guys, Dr. Mukiza, Dr. Wakida, and obviously Charles Odomto.
Good. Where are your colleagues, the other frontliners?
I guess Semuju is playing football.
In Kigali?
When the speaker threatened him that they would not qualify, they would not be eligible, if they kept up to Parliament, he rushed back to Parliament. So he's now in the Kigali playing football. My sister, I don't know where she is. Winnie.
She's been engaged in a bit of traveling lately, and a bit of other private work.
She's trying to build the ant. Is she trying to build a network for ant?
Of course.
Because I see ant is not having a journey locally. I think she's trying to make it outside.
You should say that when she's here, so that she can answer for herself.
I will.
Okay. Dr. Chris Ndatira Mukiza is Executive Director at the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Very nice to have you, Dr. Mukiza.
Thank you, Charles.
Good evening. Ugandan, first of all.
Ndatira?
Yeah, that's name.
Does it matter?
When they find a non-Ugandan seeking to count us.
I don't know whether Ofono is more Ugandan than me. He's hovering near.
He's nearer to the border.
And he has brothers the other side. We need to interrogate him further.
And Dr. Patrick Wakida. Dr. Patrick Wakida heads Research World International. He's also an educationist, but he's a researcher and has done lots of surveys over the years. So very nice to have you, Dr.
Thanks,
Wakida.
Charles. Happy to be here.
Let's start with, we're talking about counting people. I want to start with you, Dr. Mukiza. You announced the other day, and the president launched, the journey to the next Uganda Population and Housing Census 2024. What exactly will you be looking for when you do the counting of the people?
Okay, before that, I want to answer that I'm a Ugandan, born in a village called Nyabitare, in a parish, Chahafi, now it is the town council. The sub-county used to be Murora, formerly Nyakawande, in Ufumbira County and Kisoro district. 100% Ugandan. My great-grandfathers are Ugandans. So he's joining the people who think I don't have any definition. And I've been here for nearly 60 years.
Where you didn't fault him much. People who carry names like yours sometimes have been struggling to get Ugandan passports.
No,
yes.
Then they are suspects. Yeah, I have never failed. So, anyway, we intend to conduct a census, and on Tuesday the president summarized for me what all of these questions we are going to ask households cover. We want to know how many people the country has. We also want to know where they live.
Just a minute. How many people the country has?
Yes.
Does it matter whether these people are Ugandan or not Ugandan?
No. It doesn't matter, because when they're in Uganda, they get services similar to Ugandan.
So you're counting everybody who is in the country?
Yes, on the census night.
Okay.
So we want to know how many people we have at a given point. We want to know where they are, how they are entails their socio-economic status, their well-being, and where the services, the social services they access are from their communities.
Let me go back and clarify one thing for our viewers and for the panel here. You talk about how many people we have, and you said everyone who is taking services from this country. So does this census also extend to refugee populations?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Because the refugee camps, the refugee settlements, and refugee hosting communities are within the boundaries of Uganda. They want electricity, they want clean water, they want health services, they eat because food is the most important. They take their children to schools and so forth. So they very much are part and parcel of the country.
Okay. And you call this a population and housing census?
Yes.
Could you explain that other part? The
Yes.
housing bit.
We count the people and the dwelling houses in which they live. Whether the dwelling houses are permanent, semi-permanent, just highly mobile, we count them. So we want to know the type of housing structures that are in the country and the conditions of those housing structures. It's important because it's a part of the welfare indicator. If a person is staying in a house like with the carpets, that shows that the welfare socio-economic standing is high. But also we know that there are some cultural norms, like where my brother Odongo comes, they prefer the grass-thatched round houses.
Do they prefer or maybe?
Yes, they do. They find it, and in fact, they are very expensive. The other day, I wanted to build a cottage, and they are quoting me. It's more than iron sheets.
Yeah, because for you, you're building it as a luxury, not...
Yeah, but you
yeah, the other people are building it as a dwelling place.
Yeah, why do you think the tourists want to sleep there? Because they are very fancy, they are good. They are not affected by adverse weather. So even those who want to know and also understand the reasons behind why people live like that.
In a country where government has divested itself from housing projects, that's largely been left to the private sector for people to build on their own. What does knowing the dwelling places help for planning purposes?
The country has divested itself almost on anything, including education, including power distribution. We have Umeme, which is a company, for example. But government regulates the private sector. And also, government provides the planning, physical planning on where to put the structures so that they can be easily accessible, they can even be serviced, and so forth. So although you are building your own house, of course, the urban authorities will have to dictate to you where to put a house and how.
Okay, yeah, one more question for you before I go to the other panel members. What are your own expectations as the man in charge of this process, as the person steering this process?
My expectation is that we are going to get cooperation from all the population in the country. They will cooperate, and we shall enumerate them with also some risks that we have experienced in other area censuses, where the myth, some elements have myth that when they are counted, they die. Others think when we count them, we are taking their information to revenue authorities for taxation. So there is that resistance. And that's the reason why we have started publicity array. So sensitize them that what we are doing is for statistical purposes only. We do not share any individual record. All information we gather is held confidential. For example, there is nowhere.
Can we trust you on your word for that?
Yes, because...
I mean, you're collecting this data for government. You're part of the government, your government agency. Why should Ugandans trust that the information will be safe with you?
This is not the first census. Uganda Census is going to conduct the third census. The first one was in 2002. The previous one was 2014. We've never revealed any information. We even collect more detailed information in the household surveys. We collect a lot of information on the businesses, and I've never released any information on any person, because that's our profession.
For the existence of the country, how many censuses have we gone through so far? Would you have a number?
Yes, since independence, we have carried out 6.
6 censuses?
Yes.
Since independence.
Yes. Before independence, we had carried out 3. Was it 5 or 3?
Since 1911.
1911, okay.
Yeah.
But those ones were just, the earlier ones before independence, they were counting actually Europeans in the country.
Mm.
The one of 1911 and the one of 1921, they were just interested in the Europeans.
Mm.
Now the one of 1948, the Asians were very many, they are counting Europeans and Asians. So the next year, when they wanted to analyze, they found that Ugandans were not covered. And
They started counting them.
they started counting them.
So for you, just take you back a little, you said now you'll count Europeans in the country, you'll count Asians in the country, you'll count South Sudanese, whoever is in the country, you'll be counted.
Because the Ugandan...
Do you disaggregate them when we say that Uganda's population is estimated at 45.5 million? I'm using the number that the president used on Tuesday. Does that include everybody in the country at a particular moment?
Now, to collect you the population now is estimated to be 46.2 million.
46.2?
Yes.
The president's statement said 45.5.
No?
Yes?
46.2. Take my estimates, my projections, because mine are official.
Okay.
More official than anybody.
Okay.
So we are 46.5.
46.5.
46.2.
46.2 includes who?
Includes Europeans, non-Europeans, Ugandans, and babies born.
Dr. Okida, let me come to you quickly on this. Why do these numbers matter?
Let me first define a census. A census is a complete count of people and the information around people. And I think that's what Dr. here is trying to. Information around the people has to do with age, has to do with where they sleep, has to do with gender, it has to do with education, it has to do with the number of children that person has. That's information around people, the education of that person. So I want to give you an example of one individual first. That individual called OO, for example. When I am in his house, what am I looking for? I'm looking at employment status, marriage status, number of children. So you are doing a complete count of people and information around those people. That's called a census. Now, most times people mistake census and the sampling census. When we go for sampling, we pick out certain number, randomly select certain number of people. Now, with the census, you go to a village in an enumeration area and collect information. Now, let me go back to your question. Why is it important? Is it important for you to know how many children are in the country? Is it important for you to know how many people have got permanent or temporary houses? Isn't it important for you to know how many educated people we have in the country? That is very important. And I can tell you, at a planning level, you are not able to define what budget allocations at a planning level, what budget allocation for each of the different sectors, if you don't have that information. For the United Nations member states, it's mandatory that after every 10 years, you must do a census. Of course, Dr. Bakiza here, they have a projected information, and he has been telling you the 46.2 is projected. It's not yet certified until when we do a census. We, the researchers, I will not be able to do a sampling if I don't have a census. So I use what he produces, and I get the enumeration spaces, and I allocate the population. With that, I am able to weight my population and say this is every time.
This is representative from the sample.
Every time you see me talk about the population or data, what I use, I base the basis of sampling is what he's going to produce.
When you tell us in your surveys that this percentage of Ugandans think like this, That percentage is drawn from the numbers
It's drawn from Bakiza's enumeration spaces. So we do random sampling from what he has conducted as a census. And without that, it's very difficult for me even to do a sampling programming. So it's important from economic point of view and socioeconomic point of view. You want to understand the people you govern. So it's important for Mr. Museveni to know, for example, he's able to say the biggest population of Uganda is that of under 15. At a planning level, you therefore see the burden the government has. You are dealing with younger people, unemployed, unproductive. So how do you plan for those populations? Then you look at the aged and you say, okay, what's the percentage of the population that are beyond 65 years? Then you begin to plan for those ones. So it's important. And I can tell you, the government, in all ways, should forego everything they do.
And do a census.
And do a census to guide them into the direction they want to take the country.
We've had significant controversies over census. I'll give you an example. Nigeria has struggled to do its own census for a long time. They were struggling, so the numbers are an estimate of what they think their population is. Why is there controversy over conducting census? In some countries, not in Uganda.
Well, thank you, Charles, but I thought you didn't ask the right question at the beginning, and unfortunately, my brother, Dr. Mukiza, didn't help his cause. Let me help him in the hope that he will pay me eventually. National Housing and Population Census is now, in today's world, is a mandatory requirement by the United Nations. In our own case, Uganda, we now have a law, I think 1998, which established the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, which we abbreviate as UBOS, which is led by the executive director here, my brother Mukiza. And therefore, it is a policy requirement in the laws of Uganda that UBOS, every 10 years, resources permitting, conducts national population and housing census. We have been doing that diligently since independence. This is going to be the 6th. The last one, as you said, should have been done in 2012, but because of financial and other issues, it was pushed to 2014. And therefore, 2024 is going to be the 10th year. And so we expect that everybody who is living in Uganda come May 9th, 2024, will be counted. We don't expect. Through this mobilization, we want to encourage everyone to cooperate with the enumerators, the people who are coming to your households, to be counted. And then the questions they are going to ask you, you try and answer them as faithfully as you can. The information collected will be aggregated, analyzed, to help the government plan for the country better. So that needs to be cleared, that it is a legal requirement, it's a policy requirement, but through this mobilization, yes, there may be misgivings. It is our job as leaders in the government, as leaders in homes, in the communities, to convince everyone, especially household heads, so that the census goes smoothly, to enable government get all the information required for planning. Planning, first of all, just to know the number of people in Uganda, basing on which we can then provide the necessary services, education, health, roads, and urbanization, and so on and so forth. So that's what we expect from the people. Now, you had asked me why there are controversies. The controversies partly because we, in our case, Uganda and around the world, we are dealing with a population that has a substantial portion that is not enlightened, that is not educated. In today's world, we are dealing also with a population that is getting information from multiple sources. And there is therefore a likelihood of people spreading misinformation, disinformation, negative information. Like what Dr. Mukiza had said. Somebody is bound to say, when we know the number of your children, we may then tax you. You know, there are many people who believe in different religions who say, you don't count my children. We are coming from traditional backgrounds where somebody says, you're not supposed to know my children. You're not supposed to know the number of wives I have. You're not supposed to know the number of cows or homes. Some of us have more than one home. You have a home in Kampala, but you also have a home in Mulanda. And so on and so on. So it should be our job collectively as leaders to make sure that we harmonize, we say the purpose for this census is really a good purpose to help the government serve us better.
Someone will ask a question and say, you've been doing, this is going to be the 6th census we are conducting as a country.
Yes.
And the services do not match the numbers. So people are saying, actually Gift from Nansana is asking the question and says, I wish that money was actually put, the money going to be spent on the census was actually put on providing better services. Because the planning doesn't seem to align with the findings.
BMK is educated, but is now beginning to spread misinformation and disinformation. The government cannot provide you with accurate services budget for you accurately if it doesn't know the structure, the number of the population in the whole country, but also segmented. Who is in the Kampala capital city, for example? Who is in Tororo district? Who is in the Mulanda sub-county? Who is in the Pochowa parish? Who is in Mulanda Ayago village, which is my village? So the government needs to know that. Like what Dr. Wakida said, we have all been saying Uganda has a huge population of people below 15 years. We need to know that number so that we are able, for example, to plan for immunization, the mandatory immunization for children below 12 years, for instance, for children below 5 years. We need to know that number to be able to plan and provide for nursery schools, to provide for primary 1, to provide for primary 7, to provide for O-level, S1 to S4, to provide for S5 and S6, to provide for tertiary. We need to have that. And we need to divorce that from having accurate figures and implementing programs properly. That it would be a secondary debate. Once we have had accurate numbers and the structure, then now we need to say, are we able to raise sufficient resources? And when we raise the resources, do we send the resources to where they are most needed? Which then will answer the questions of BMK. Whether when we have resources, we actually put the resources effectively to address the concerns that we say we're addressing with the resources. But first and foremost, we need to know the number, we need to know the structure of the population in the whole country. And this is going to be for everyone. Whether you are a Ugandan or a non-Ugandan, if on the 9th of May you have spent that night in Uganda, you are going to be counted.
On the 10th of May.
On the 10th of May. And therefore, in the details, these people will be able to separate the Ugandans and non-Ugandans. And if you're non-Ugandans, who spent that night here? Are you a Kenyan, or you are Rwandese, you are South Sudanese, and so on and so forth? And whether you are here, for how long do you live here, for example, when you come? That will be in their detailed information and will be addressed through the analysis. And so we need to establish those basics.
Dr. Mkiza seems like he wants to step in, but I wanted to get to Charles.
Let me just say,
yes.
You had said why Uganda. These misgivings are not only in Uganda. By the way, Nigeria, you referred to, in the 80s did not conduct census at all. In the entire 80s, they didn't, because of other controversies and so on. Yes, the other issue would be, probably that's what BMK is trying to raise.
Let me read BMK's actual message.
We have been registering Ugandans, for example, for telephone. We have been registering births. We have been registering date. Somebody would say, if you have been registering births and dates, why don't you just subtract?
Yes, you have the numbers.
The number of dates from the number of births, so that probably you come to the accurate figure. But this is the current standard, global standard, that you physically count people.
Okay, let me read.
The development of technology and better data collection over time, maybe the world will reach that level when you don't need to count people physically. But as of now, all countries, including the most developed, they count people physically.
Okay.
Every 10 years.
Let me read BMK's actual message. He said, counting of people, fine. Planning for them? Well, does the government ever mind how the locals survive in their local communities? Do the locals actually benefit from their planning, or it's just for formality and everybody for himself and good for us all? How I wish those billions of money for the census were used to cover up some of the potholes on the Mbarara-Kasese Road or Uganda. That's BMK's actual message. Charles Odongthol, let me come to you on this. Many Ugandans feel like information about them is being collected at every center. Everybody is collecting so much information about people. And they're bound to be skeptical about another round of information collecting, which they might find actually invasive into their private lives.
Thank you, Charles. And I think OO has done a good job for my case. And because my role, or our role as the committee, the subcommittee on advocacy and communication is to try and demystify those type of myths, misinformation, and unpack the mystery around the suspicions people have. And I was checking one of the statistics from around Uganda in terms of literacy rates. And it says that we have up to about 4.7 million Ugandans who are still illiterate. It doesn't define into detail what levels of, the parameters of illiteracy. But even looking at it on the surface, my guess is that there are many people who are still, many Ugandans, in millions, like OO has alluded to, who are still susceptible, who, are vulnerable to lies, to disinformation, fake news, as we call them in the modern media world. And I think it's important that we don't take, this, on face value and take it for granted that people will accept, programs of government in this case. So for me, I come from that. I come from that corner, that we need to educate Ugandans. Keep speaking to them for the next 5-6 months going forward to 9th May. That if there is anything that must unite Ugandans, it's an exercise like the census. Because everybody needs development. Everybody needs to be planned for. It's not like, what was the last turn-up for the 2021 elections? About 57, 58%. I'm looking at Uganda carrying out a census where we must have over 90% if we are going to be effective. Because, you know, the Dr. Mukizas, my brother Wakida, and my brother here, they like talk in statistics. They talk a lot of jargons, statistics, research, and all that. Now, to a person like Gift, for me, the simple analogy that I want us to use to explain the importance of census is that look at it as a house. Within a house, the household of Mr. Ofono Opondo, let me just give a figure that he has 15 children. God blessed him with 15 children. He has one wife, 15 children, and local it can be, simple. So you need, but you also need to know that if I'm going to buy food, I have 15 children and 20 grandchildren. That's exactly the point
that BMK is trying to raise. He says, if you have always known, we did a census in 1992.
Yes.
We did another census in 2002.
Yeah.
And then we did a census in 2014.
Yes.
The one that was delayed.
Yeah.
We launched universal primary education in 1997.
Yes.
We knew how many children we expected. Almost 30 years down the road, we haven't built enough schools for them. And we've been doing the census. That's the question he's asking. He's saying, what is the correlation between knowing the numbers for planning purposes and actually planning and executing on the plans?
I think my simple answer to Gift would be, let each level of the social provision or social providers in government do their bit. It doesn't mean that for the potholes to be filled, you must first stop census. What we should be, you know, tasking maybe General Katumba Wamala, maybe Madam Allen Kajina, that is this road done? Why is it not done? Were you given the resources? Yes or no? Why haven't you done it? But not to say, stop census and first use the money, because there is money allocated for roads. Roads has the biggest amount of money. Let me just
introduce, Dr. Mukiza, with your permission, I'll just introduce the Honorable Geoffrey Ekanya, who joined us after I done the introductions. Honorable, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Charles, and good evening.
Can I give you in about 30 seconds, because I need to take a break?
Thank you. I wanted to inform public that government has not been sitting on the data we produced. Recently, we disseminated Uganda demographic and health survey results, which shows progress. For example, in 2000, under 5 infant mortality, that is death per 100,000 live births. In 2000, it was 151.
In 2000?
Yes, children who are dying below 5 years, 151 out of 1,000.
Is that what you call infant mortality?
Under 5, yes. Infant mortality. Now, because of government interventions, in 2022, only 52 under 5. 52 out of 100,000 were died below
5 years.
So you can see the progress.
Let's take a break and pick that up. Okay, let's take a break and pick up a few more numbers in a moment. We'll be right back.
The biggest.
NBS Frontline.
You're still watching The Frontline on NBS TV, and we're discussing the Census 2024. Will it herald a better life for Ugandans? After that, we're being told that the purpose of the census is to help government to plan better for the population. Do we see that planning coming through in the, when the planning, does it actually correlate with the numbers found of the population? And Dr. Mukiza was giving us some numbers just before he took the break. I'll come to you to complete the numbers. I want to run to Honorable Ekanya briefly, but also say that Ainamani Kenneth Jr., thank you for watching us. You say you're excited about the panel full of technocrats. We have added Ekanya, he's a technocrat in this area. And Dr. Akida was whispering here that they sat on the same bench and sat A-level together. And they did it, Yes.
But Ekanya looks older.
No, we're in the same class. Same class, and I was his head boy at the school, and he was my head boy at the hostel.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
And now he's your MP.
He's now my...
Job Richard Matua is watching us, and he says, carrying out population census is vital for many reasons. 1, policy formulation. 2, ascertaining certain things like development distribution patterns. 3, getting accurate information about a country. 4, making future projections. 5, for planning purposes, e.g. budgeting. Therefore, we should encourage all citizens to participate in the census. And here's a question for the ED of UBOS. He says, what is the action plan of UBOS to mobilize the population to accept to be counted? You'll answer that. That's a question from Job Richard Matua. I have a comment here from, yes, someone says they have a direct question for Dr. Mukiza. I direct my question to Dr. Mukiza. Does the census cover for Ugandan citizens in other countries? Or are you counting only Ugandans who are here? I have also seen a message from Lieutenant Colonel Ronald Kakurungo. He's excited to have his friend Charles Odongtho on the panel, and says he's excited by the topic that we're discussing on the population and housing census. And Hare Sagara sent a message. Yes, let me read a message from Hare Sagara. He says, I need to declare that in the last census, I was never counted, though I was here. I hope this time they will count me. My question is, will this census guarantee that we shall have better service provision, better schools, better health services, better infrastructure? Because clearly nothing has changed with all the censuses that have been carried out. You're beginning to answer that. But let me first go to Honorable Ekanya and ask a very simple question. We are spending about 300 billion. Is that true, Dr. Mukiza? Your budget is about 300 billion?
We are spending 320 billion.
320 billion.
Yes.
And I hope you don't ask for supplementary.
If there is need.
Can we justify this expenditure from where you sit?
He's the shadow minister for finance.
Yes.
I was.
You are no longer?
No.
So we survived you?
Yes. Yeah, 320 billion, and I am sure Dr. Mukiza will come for more money. It is a very bad practice in Uganda. And even the additional resource that Parliament passed recently was really a result of poor planning. This was known.
10 years ago?
Yes. And even the census that was delayed was known. And then now you come and do supplementary. That denies the population opportunity to really critically look at the detail of the items and the component. But census is necessary. We need it despite its shortcoming and failure. But the resource, that 320 billion, I think is way on the higher side. But it is the failure of government, and that's why Dr. Mukiza is asking for 320 billion. We would have even asked for 100 billion shillings if government had established the necessary infrastructure immediately after the last census, because this is a cumulative process. The UBOS supposed to do...
You're collecting data,
yes,
to help you plan better.
Yes.
You have 10 years to plan your next census.
Yes.
And what you're suggesting that it wasn't planned for?
You see, according to the Act and the practice globally, census is a cumulative process. The one which is done after a period of 10 years is to summarize the annual surveys. that the institution that does population census conducts every year. Yearly, they conduct, for example, they conduct census on lifestyle, they conduct census on health issues, all these surveys, which are called surveys, household surveys on land and all these patterns. Now, finally, culminates in a 10-year population census. By that time, the institution is expected to have the necessary infrastructure. And with Uganda, we expected, and with this matter was even discussed, UBOS sharing some information and institutions, tools that other institutions have. For example, we discussed, and they even tried to integrate it in their planning, using information from Electoral Commission and other institutions of government, and sharing facilities like vehicles, human resource, and staff. But you see, it has come almost 2 years. This debate has been on 2 years, and yet it's supposed to be ongoing. But you know, the NRM government, which OO represents, they enjoy fire brigading. And as a result, they create mistrust. For example, why would anybody in any part of the world have misgiving on any activity of government? People always have misgiving because of failure of government to show result at the end. You tell the people of Uganda, we are going to conduct census, it will help us to plan better services. And then people cannot see those services. Services in Uganda, to a large extent, and I want to be very cautious, is politically directed. Because
are you suggesting the numbers don't matter?
Really,
when the politics come in, the numbers don't matter?
In Uganda, for the last 20 years, numbers have mattered, the population census numbers have mattered in as far as supporting health reforms and improvement in that area. Based on the number of child mortality, maternal mortality, and so forth, the Parliament of Uganda pushed government, and we had to secure funding from African Development Bank, the World Bank, to support like the early childhood nutrition programs, to support programs of rehabilitation of all health centers in the country, to support rehabilitation and creating maternity wings in all health centers in the country. That was based on statistics. And
Dr. Mukiza gave us numbers here.
Yes, but
that
it has
showed a
only,
significant improvement.
Charles,
yes,
it has only been, I think that's the only sector I can tell you with the level of accuracy. But other sectors, for example, why would a country like Uganda have majority of chief executives, majority of staff in government coming from one part of the country for the last 20 years? And the report from UBOS has been showing this. But government has failed to implement the constitutional provision of equitable development. You know, so this kind of... Yes?
But Honorable Ekanya, you're pointing out on health. Government would point to investment in road infrastructure, for example, investment in education, for example, and say, look, yes, we might have had 50% of the children who enrolled for primary one in 1997 doing school under tree shades. If you come in 2023, 2024, that number has possibly dropped to maybe 20–30%. We've been able to put up more classroom blocks.
I do agree.
Would you deny that?
But I don't deny. But you see, you need to go far.
How far?
Recently, we went to that Bunyoro, Bulisa area. There are schools, children still studying under shade. Something that you don't find in OO's place in Tororo. You have the road that links this landlocked country, Tororo Malaba to Kampala, Busia Malaba to Kampala. That contributes to a greater part of revenue, having heavy traffic jam for the last 10 years. Is that lack of statistics? Is that a lack of poor planning? Is that lack of resource? So we need the census, Charles. In principle, we need the census. But the census will only basically help, one, government to negotiate with international partner. It will also going to help the investors. I interact with so many investors, local and abroad. It helps them to project their investment. But to a certain extent, it helps the government of Uganda. But an ordinary local person in Merikiti, who has not seen change in terms of job creation, change in terms of promises,
Change of their MP.
change in terms of services delivered by the state. They still go to hospital, they don't get drugs. So you tell them participation in census, it will improve service. That mistrust has been created by the NRM government itself. And therefore, you find now you have advocacy committee. They are going to get some resource to kind of clean up the mistrust. So I would like to kind of advise government that this census, Mr. Mukiza would have asked for less money, but government has caused him to demand for more money.
And you project that he'll come back for a supplementary?
Because, I mean, government has pushed him to the wall.
Okay. Let me take a message from John Andiandu. He's an IT expert and an engineer. He's watching us from Entebbe. He says, if the government conducts census for planning purposes as one of the reasons, these questions deserve answers. And I'll come to you, Dr. Mukiza, to answer the many questions I've been reading from our viewers. How many roads has the government enlarged to cater for the increasing population? Bombo Road, Ginger Road, and many others are still the same size as left by the colonialists and other governments prior to this current one. How many schools, institutions, and universities has government built to match the increasing number of learners? How many houses has government built for police officers, soldiers, and other civil servants to match their increase? John Andiandu, an IT expert. I have a message from Talibita Moses who says, will you please inform your panel that going forward, if NIRA was supposed to cover the 24 districts that lack the NIRA offices, financed to close it on the human resource for civil registration, we shall have to save the routine registration of vital statistics without the tedious census. I am interested in knowing how, for instance, it shall cost, how much it shall cost UBOS generating data from Obongi, Karenga, Chikube, Kalachi, among others, and what is could an estimate cost them? Talibita Moses of Kasusu. Another person, yes, Moses Watasa, is watching us, says the census and data are from is vital for planning, resource allocation, and much more. Let us all turn up and get counted. Good job thus far by Dr. Mukiza and team. This is a message from Moses Watasa. Let me come back to you. You're picking up some numbers to justify the improvement in planning and its deliverables once the census is done. And you have many questions from our viewers.
Yes, I will give you a few.
Yes, sure.
And then I demystify my friend Kanya's assertions.
There is a Harris Agara who said you never counted him last time you counted
Yes,
him.
I also answer that.
Yes.
So I was informing you that, in fact, data has helped improve the well-being of Ugandans. I talked about the infant mortality. Under 5, how it declined. In 2000, 151 per 1,000 live births.
What is the link between that and what is the link between counting people and the drop of this number?
This shows that we counted people, they were immunized, and they are not dying. They are accessing health facilities. Health facilities are nearer the people. And the Kenya accepts that the number of health centers are built based on the data. Now, if I go to the life expectancy, in 2000 yes, the life expectancy was 52. Now we project it is 67. 67, a child born today can be confident to live for 67 years. The reason, the amenities, the social services, there's good education, health, and what have you. Earlier, they would not reach their 60th birthday. Another important one is the maternal mortality rate. The mothers who die while giving birth, or in few days after giving birth. In 2006, there were 336 per 10,000 mothers who have given live birth.
Today?
Today, of course, we don't want any mother to die, but it has reduced to 189. The reason, because they attend antenatal and they get medical treatment, so they are not dying as many as they were. So the data is speaking for itself. Of course, not all the data is being put to better use. The planners and policymakers, that has been our argument, that must use data to inform planning and decision making. Now, about Kenya's argument that census is a summation of all the surveys that are carried out from the other census. I think it's a far-fetched argument. As Dr. Wakida has told you, for you to do a sample survey, you must have a frame. Yeah. And the frame is a census. And after 10 years, the other frame is old, is already useless. So you need to build a frame from the baseline data, from the benchmark statistics, and then do the intersection. In fact, the other ones are just trying to replicate what you could have gotten if you are doing census every year. Mm. So at some time, the other master frame uses value because population dynamics change very fast. Mm. So you cannot add the surveys and get census numbers. You must do a total count at one given time. Germany...
And that standard has been set at 10 years?
Yeah,
every 10 years?
The round of 10 years, the UN round of 10 years. Germany thought that they had a very good registration system. The birth death register. For 30 years, they have not done census until 2011. They thought they had the population which they didn't have. When they did the census, they found that they are actually underpopulated.
Germany?
Germany. Mm. And that's where they liberalized the immigration policy. They were sending resources to the people that were not there. Mm. Going by
for 30 years?
Yes, going by the registration system. And of course, if people fear turning up for census, do you think they will register their children? If in Germany they fail to understand, and even the immigration numbers. In fact, we want to thank the government of Uganda because they have consistently conducted censuses, despite the delays. Nigeria, as you said, has never conducted census in the last 50 years. The second biggest economy in Africa.
And someone would ask.
So for us, in fact, I want even to congratulate Ugandans that they have been counted, they have cooperated, and they have supported us as we have.
Let me put the question to OO. Would you find fundamental differences in terms of service delivery between Uganda and Nigeria where they haven't conducted census for 50 years?
Yes and no. Mm. In our case, if we did not conduct census, maybe we would be worse off than where we are. Let me just give you an example. I've been a director since 1999. That long. Mm. When there was a debate and we created...
there was no media center then, so you need to clarify. You've been director.
I was at the NRM secretariat.
Okay.
I was at the movement secretariat, which was part of the government. When we created what is now Yumbe district, that also coincided with decentralization. And you remember at that time we said, let local government people come from the areas of their areas. At that time, we looked for somebody who had done social sciences administration and management from what is Aringa County. We did not find one. We went to Bundubujo, was where we found a veterinary doctor. The person who was the veterinary officer, the district vet officer for Bundubujo. And the president had to make a special intervention for that person to be transferred, a vet doctor, to become the acting cow. It was as that bad. When we said we want to recruit police officers, cadet officers, university graduates from every district, we could not find a university graduate from Yumbe district who was willing to join the police as a cadet officer. today with the census and conscious work, you can see the difference. You can go and check. Somebody was referring to the roads. Recently, I was in Nimbani. That road from the one which comes from Vumbo through Navumali, through Wakaha, never existed. What you can dispute, what you can raise, is that probably the pace, the rate of development is not commensurate with the time we have been in the government, but also perhaps with the resources that when we budget resources, maybe substantial amount of resources go to wastage. That's what you can argue, but you cannot say nothing has been done.
Someone, you give a very good example of a road, and someone would argue and say that certain roads are done more for political reasons, not unless just a minute, unless basing on the numbers that Dr. Mukiza finds, that if if the president, we are hitting 2024, and it will be full swing campaign mode, and the president will be visiting a particular area, and they say our road. Now, the moment he commits and says that road is going to be done, it somehow finds itself on the...
But even that one, even, you see, the politics...
Without looking at the numbers.
You see, even the politics is part of the input process. Let me just go back to my brother gift of Nansana. 15 years ago, Nansana did not have national water, piped water. Nansana and Mukono did not have piped water. 15 years ago. Why are they now having national water?
Is the piped water in Nansana a result of planning?
Yes, it
or development has happened in Nansana and the services are following development?
It is not mutually exclusive. It's a combination of political pressure, planning, census, and resource availability. Even when you have counted people.
Dr. Okeda is itching to come in. Yes.
Even when you have counted people, the census you have done, does not mean you will get the requisite resources to implement the things you have planned. Even when you have the resources, does not automatically translate that the resources will be put to the things you have planned to do for different reasons. It could be diversion. It could be competence. It could be negligence. We have been on this show many times. For example,
it could be lack of resources.
It could be lack of resources. We have been on this show many times. That we say Parliament is independent. The judiciary is independent. Parliament is independent, for example, including determining its own emolument. But what is the practice? When the Ekanyas have just come from election and they want 200 million shillings for their vehicles, that matter will be decided in State House. Why? Because the nature...
Ekanya is protesting.
Because the nature of the state we are running is such that you must bend backwards. Ekanya was making a case that in spite of the statistics, the top executives are still tilted to one side. Let me just take his own political party, especially the faction to which he is now.
We don't have a faction.
No, the faction to which he is now. The president of FDC is from Eastern Uganda. The Secretary General is from Eastern Uganda. The National Treasurer is from Eastern Uganda. How come that FDC of the Kenyans is tilted to the east? Is it because they don't? Is it because they don't have membership from different parts of the country who are able to enjoy those national positions of FDC? So certain things you don't do mechanically. No, you don't do mechanically. You do consciously. You bend backwards to do certain things.
Ekanya will defend himself.
I want to
please.
I want to guide.
Yes, you're going to answer your questions, Dr. Mukiza.
You look for it.
I want us to avoid to politicize this very important exercise.
Exactly.
And I hate it when I hear people politicize an exercise of this nature, because then people will misunderstand the value of it. Censuses, first of all, I heard Honorable Kanya say they asked for a lot of money. Research is a very expensive undertaking. It involves moving people from one part of the country to the other, housing people for all of the period they are in there. In fact, I am yet to understand the total number of enumerators you are going to use, because the de facto method that is going to be applied, where we will come and find you where you slept in order for you to be counted, requires that you go to households.
Door to door.
That's where you are going to go. And you must therefore note that this house has been counted. Then I have had another person here say I wasn't counted. And again, that is the ignorance on research. Research, we intend to get the value that we can get. And in fact, we look for the significance. Once we score between 90 and 95, then we've gotten it. So if you are not among the 95% that has been counted, we'll round it up and say positive 5 minus 5, we have it. So it's ignorance, and the people.
So Harris Sagara was actually counted.
The people who are running UBOS need to help in sensitizing people on how research is conducted. Now,
just for the clarity of our viewer, is research the surveys that do the same as the counting that they're going to do?
No.
These are different.
No. Actually, you see, these are the periodical research we do. It's not a national survey. You will find we've chosen out of the 150 districts, we've done, say, 58 for purposes of understanding, and that's called the sampling method.
The sampling space.
We are using a quantitative method to count a person and to understand the person. We will know the number of times they have been in the hospital. We will know the number of children they have. We will know food, we will know health, everything.
In a country, this is taking you a little outside, and maybe Dr. Mkiza should answer it. In a country where counting of children, for example, is taboo, a man doesn't want to count his children. If OO has a family in Mukono, he took the other one to Malanda. The village home and the city home, those are different things. But if he had a family in Mukono and another one in Lunguja, he doesn't want to talk about the other one in Lunguja. He wants to talk about the ones in Mukono. How do you ascertain that these are the children available to Mr. Fonopondo, for example?
But those children are in a given household.
Yes.
So we don't go looking for the father. We go looking for the head of the household.
The people who slept.
And the head of the household is not necessarily a mayor. So if Ofono has gone to Mulanda and has left children and other wife here, or a caretaker who is an adult and understands the dynamics of the family will be treated as head of household and respond.
Okay.
So those kids will be counted.
Okay.
They will only be saying our parent is this one. That's all. Then the debate here is as if data is only for government planning, and that's not true. Beyond the government, there are other agencies, civil society, religious and cultural institutions, and the researchers like Wakida who use this data. They are actually even more. They are more than what they utilize the data more than. For example, now, Uganda Kingdom, we have signed an MOU with them, and they have started using the data. They have Manyasazadio, where the Masazas are and what the wealth that Masazas have. And they are using the data from census and surveys. We are also about to...
They're using your data?
Yes, we are also about to go to Bunyoro and Busoga. So it's not only government. Cultural institutions use it even to create parishes and the dioceses. So it's not only government. Government is part of the whole game. We produce data for everybody.
Someone asked you about your game plan?
Yes, that's what I wanted to do. The action plan for sensitization, yes, we have started, and we are actually going to use interreligious council to be part of the sensitization, civil society organization, cultural institutions, and the media like you. We have started. Then one gentleman asked whether we cover Ugandans since we're abroad. Dr. Akida has told you that we are going to conduct a de facto census. De facto census means where you stayed on the census night.
Okay.
So we are taking a picture of everybody who was in Uganda in the night of 9th May. So if you are not there, you'll not be counted because it's a de facto. We are not looking for de jure where you ordinarily reside. So that they can be coming to report, I stay this way. So because there's de facto, even a Ugandan, who was in America in 2002, 2020, when they did the census, was counted, was not left out.
Okay.
We are going to count the mission members of the missions here. The Ugandans who are the outside are counted, and they sort of net out. So that's not even a distortion.
Okay. So the Ugandans watching, Dr. Mkiza, help us with this. The Ugandans watching us right now, and they do communicate with us, and you've given them a date, May 9th, 2024. The Ugandans who might want to be counted and plan to say, on that day, I must be in Uganda because there's going to be a census. Does it matter for them? Should they?
They should come.
They should come.
By the 8th.
Whoever will
so
be,
that
yes.
Gets them here.
And another thing is if you are here and you go on the 9th, before the night,
yes,
you don't have, the picture will not get you.
Charles, for that Ugandan, what's the benefit? Why should they incur the expense of coming over?
If they want to be counted.
If they want to be counted.
As Ugandans.
Because it matters to be counted. They know it is important.
To be counted.
To be part of the statistics.
But Charles, you asked Doctor on the game plan on how to get many Ugandans to participate, to embrace this. He mentioned the memorandum of understanding with, for example, the Buganda Kingdom, and Bunyoro is in the process. We, as a publicity team, which the ED belongs to and actually is our chief spokesperson, we are planning, a multifaceted approach, including, working closely with the cultural institutions, the religious institutions. You know that when you look at the Catholic Church, Anglican, Pentecostals, people listen better and more effectively to their pastors, to their priests. So we are going to engage them as well, to sensitize them as well to embrace this national exercise. We are going to engage the media. Charles, you as well, you are an influencer. You understand? Beyond what you do here, people listen to you and people believe you. And people rely on you to believe in a message. We are going to have ambassadors, media ambassadors.
Yes, but Charles, so that, you and I are communicators. Before you get to that, I mean, what is the simple message you're giving to Ugandans saying, this is important for you, it's important for your country, participate in it?
The first thing is that it matters to be counted. Then we break down what is it that matters. That this is important, one, for the functions that a census plays. They have been rolled out for you here. And the important thing is that I think we are going to engage in, like I said at the beginning, demystifying some of the myths. That even separate issues, separate responsibilities. Let us understand that first, let's get counted and we know. Then we get to the next stage and say, let our MPs, our leaders, our representatives in parliament ask the question of why is it that there is no service delivery to match the numbers that have been confirmed. That should be at another stage. I think the problem we have, and that is what for me I think we should be communicating in this exercise, is that we mix a lot of things.
Okay.
And that is something we should demystify.
Let me give back the 2 minutes to Dr. Mukiza before we take a break. And I'll read a message. Someone sent an extract, I think, of Google, that Nigeria's last census was conducted from March 21st, 27th, 2006. The results of the census put the country's population at 140,431,790 people, with 71.3 million males and 69.0 million females. We tend to have more females than males in this country. These ones had more males than females. And the results were controversial, with the South alleging that the figures had been inflated to favor the north of Nigeria. In 2023, Nigeria was set to conduct another survey. That was in March. I don't know if they went through with it. They were supposed to do what they called a green census in March from 29th to April 2nd in all the 774 local government areas. The person who sent this message, it needed to be updated to reflect what is happening if this census was done. Dr. Mkiza, I'll give you 1 minute to conclude some answers on the things you're responding to from our viewers.
Yes, thank you, Charles. There is one who says was not counted.
Harris Sagara.
Sagara. He has attempted to say he may have been part of those who are not counted, but they were estimated. This time we want to count 100%. The reason, the preparations we are making, we are doing GPS mapping. So no household will be left behind.
So you have enough personnel to move?
Yes, we are going to have 120,000 enumerators covering the entire country. It's a very big, and we are going to be paperless. We are going to use digital. I think that's what Nigerians are calling green.
The green census.
Yes, but it never occurred, their census. And the one they caught of 2006, it was never, the results were never recognized because I think there were some methodological issues.
But Charles,
yes,
maybe what you should ask Dr. Mukiza, how people who are not at home and in places like pubs or bars will be counted. Because when Harry Sagara is my brother, when he says he was not counted, someone has just sent me, a colleague in journalism has sent me a message here, and I was laughing, that was Sagara really at home at night. So he is my brother from Pakwach.
The census is not conducted at night. It's conducted during the day.
Yeah. Yes, but
he might have been having a hangover, a headache, and he didn't wake up because they can't force you to leave your bed. No. They may not forget.
Kitali Barnabas, your question I think was answered about. Kitali Barnabas is reminding us about his question on whether Ugandan citizens in other countries are counted. And he said he wanted to ask once more. Kitali, you'll get an answer after a very short commercial break. We'll be right back.
Who I knew.
Welcome back. Welcome back. It's an interesting bit of the discussion on the population and housing census coming up next year, May 10th, where you'll have spent the night on the 9th of May.
And it will be, and 10th will be a public holiday.
10th will be a public holiday to facilitate the counting. Harry Sagara, they've been answering your question, and they said probably you belong to a floating population. That's what they said.
Charles, I think you have to ask Doctor to explain the different categories of people who belong to what we call the floating population.
Dr. Mukiza,
Sagara might belong to that as well.
There are many questions for Dr. Mukiza, but I wanted to give a quick opportunity to Oo and Ekanya to make an input into this discussion. Then I'll come because I need to spare more time for Dr. Mukiza. There's someone here who says, but if we can't even plan for the obvious in 1 year, in which a few months down the road, government is asking for a supplementary, how will the 10-year data update help? David from Maswali. Honorable Kanya, you had a critical question. Numbers keep changing communities. Every time a new census is done, I see UBOS discovering some new communities that had not been counted before. And there are now questions about numbers. Which group has more numbers? But you put the question you wanted to put.
Yes, you see, Doctor, these census that we are going to participate, and I'd like to invite the people of Uganda, everybody should participate. The outcome and your report influences government political dividends. And I've looked at communities that tend to, numbers keep dropping every 10 years of census. And that also determines when the state, for example, is appointing ministers, permanent secretaries, because the government expects political dividends. And so when they have OO in West Budama, they know OO will mobilize. But if you have a community that number keeps dropping, that means their political dividends and service they will receive from the state, because you know we are really not yet developed.
Do you have an example for what? Do you have an example for what you're saying?
Yes, like the Iteso community. The census of 1980 put the Iteso community among the second largest tribe or third largest tribe in Uganda. Today, the Iteso community have gone down 6, 7, and I hope that this census will find a new trend. And this information is online. And that has also had impact in terms of government delivering service in Iteso and among the Iteso community. Since
we are a patrilineal society,
yes,
is there an indication that the Iteso men have become a bit lazy?
No, it is not. By the way, I can tell you, because of kind of marginalization of this community, you find that some individuals, instead of when they are asked what tribe do you belong to, knowing that maybe they will be marginalized in terms of job distribution and so forth, you can even say, you see, I am a Muganda, or I am a Mukiga, or I am a Muhima. So the tools that we are going to use this time, how will it be able to clean up such misinformation so that we have the right data? Because some service delivery like health, you have to integrate social cultural issues when you're delivering service in the community. And then if you deliver service in a community and you think you're delivering among the Baganda, and yet the majority of them are Banyankole, like in Liatonde, who did not declare that information during the census.
But
so what tools and methodology are we going to use? Let me ask Dr. Mukiza this.
Because if you're planning, your major population centers are going to be the urbanized areas. Central region, being where it is located, having the capital, has more numbers. Isn't what UBOS would be interested in the numbers? Does it matter that these people belong to a certain ethnicity? Why is that? Why would that be important?
Well, I wouldn't want to go into the politics of Tororo between the groups there.
But I was asking the
yes, he will answer.
Because he's going to politicize and polarize.
He will answer.
I'm in the middle of the two, so it will be okay.
They're both from...
I know their politics of Tororo.
For purposes of election and votes, Honorable Kanya here will identify himself as a Muteso. Outside that, he will identify himself as a Japador.
No, you are out of order.
Now, I can challenge him to speak Ateso here.
No, you see, you are vulgarizing a very important aspect.
Now, that can be cured. That can be cured, not just for this census, but even when you go to school. What do you feel in the school forms that you are? Family upbringing. What do your parents tell you that you are? And that is also born by acclimatization. Do you teach your children your local language? Or if you are in Uganda, your children speak Uganda. And therefore, when they are in school, they feel not confident to say they are Mteso or Japadora. Third, we who are going to carry this census and are speaking to it now, it can be cured by mobilization, sensitization, that feel the data as accurately as possible. That will be informed by the other earlier two things. What are your parents telling you? In many of our homes, particularly where we have done cross marriages, usually the women the language of the woman, your wife, will most likely be dominant in the home. And chances are, your children, if you're not careful, they will say, I am in Uganda, especially if they are here. Now, so it can be cured by mobilization. But also, what is critical, have we count everybody, regardless of what your tribe is, what your religion is. That one will be secondary.
Okay.
But what is important, have you been counted? And therefore, we expect that the executive, led by the president, parliament, when they are making policy and resource allocation, they are going to allocate resources in accordance to the number, but also the need of that area, of that segment. That's what is the most critical.
Thank you. Let me come back to Dr. Mukiza.
But Honorable Kanya had talked about people not trusting government. Again, that should be part of our job, that the way we communicate, the way we do things, should be in such a way that we give people confidence to trust the information and processes of government. But this is not just in Uganda. Look at America. Where is Trump's wall? Where is it? Today, Congress is failing to pass certain appropriation bills because part of the group there, the Republicans are saying, until you factor in the border wall and immigration with Mexico. So this means...
the mistrust.
Mistrust. You have just talked about Nigeria, where they actually conducted the census, but they disputed the results. Now,
in 2006.
In 2006. Now, you're talking about the expenses. In this country, we have taken independence, literally, independence of institutions. You remember somebody even went to court to challenge why should the Electoral Commission use data, or why should we use the data? Why should the Electoral Commission go to NERA to pick the data? So we need to harmonize laws that create these institutions.
Thank you.
And so because of that, while the Electoral Commission has people who conduct elections, most of them, overwhelming majority of them, are part-time people. Now, you're not just going to pick people who conducted the election and give them to Mukiza.
I have a few critical questions. Thank you all. Thank you.
He's a government spokesperson.
You made your point.
This is a government.
Dr. Mukiza, I need you to come on. I need you to come on. And among the things I want you to answer or speak to, what do the trends tell you? I think he raises a critical question about ethnic communities, the numbers. Number two is, you said you're doing a digital census. What does that mean?
Okay, I will first answer the other first question.
Yes, and then we'll be switching. We'll end the program on Afro Mobile in a few minutes from now.
So those who think we are not counted could either have been missed or they are counted and they don't know. Because if an enumerator comes to your home and you are not present at the time of him coming, somebody will answer those who stayed at the home on the census night. Who shall we count or not count? If a person dies on 8th, that person will not be counted. If a child is born on 10th of May, that child will not be counted. So even if I come after 10 days and we find a baby, we shall say, when was this person born? Then that one will not be part of it.
What about populations who will be in hospitals, for example?
Yes.
We're joking about being in a bar, for example, but what if someone is in a hospital?
So we have 3 types of questionnaires. The main one is the household questionnaire, that you come to a household and count people where they stayed. There is another questionnaire which is an institutional questionnaire, which covers hospitals, schools, if the schools will be operating, barracks, army, police, prisons, and then people are the street kids. Then
homeless people.
Yes, the one who are on the streets.
Yes.
Then the ones who are in transit, in the truckers, the ones who are in bars, nightclubs, and hotels. Those are captured.
And the ones who are in lodges, we saw a fire and there were some interesting stories when there was a fire.
Yes, we count them, but with them we don't administer so many questions. We just want to know who they are, their age, and then where they ordinarily live. So that
what about professional groups? Journalists will be out covering the enumeration exercise. Doctors will be attending to patients in hospitals. How do you provide for those?
Doctors will be in the hospitals and will be counted there.
And journalists, for example?
Journalists will be, or I guess they will be in lodges because they are not to be covering during the night.
No, they'll be. You're not conducting the census at night?
No, it is during the day.
Yes, during the day. So they are out following you.
So we shall be asking where they stayed in the census at night. If they are in a hotel, because they have followed the households in Kisoro, they have been counted there.
Okay.
We shall not go to them. Now, the digital census means we are going to be...
No, let me give a specific example. NBS has deployed a crew to follow the enumeration exercise and how successful it is in Kisoro, for example.
Yes.
Yes, that crew that has been deployed is Kisoro. How do you count them? Where do they belong?
They will be a floating population.
Okay.
Because they will be staying where? Either in a lodge or somewhere. But if they happen to come to my home and stay in my home, those will be members of my household.
Okay.
So I report to them as people who stayed in my home
on the census night.
The relationship, I will just say, they are visitors.
Okay. We're continuing this conversation on Afro Mobile. So, yes, you want to say something?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I want to help this country to understand. Data is a tool. It's a hole in the household. If you have a hole and you can't use it properly, it doesn't take away the value of that hole. So for us, we are saying we've provided the tool. The users of that tool are not us, but we provided you the tool for planning, for making service delivery as you want. If you don't do so, then that is another agency of government that should be asked that question. Yeah. But let me say, have you ever crossed a road? You cross the road with your eyes closed. You can successfully actually cross. But the chances of you being knocked are very high. So you cannot run a country, you cannot do an activity without the data to inform you. And in fact, once you have the data, even at a household level, you can determine how many kilos of meat your family wants, or kilos of rice. That does not mean that you'll have it. Having the kilos of rice and meat is dependent...
Knowing what you want?
Yes, it's totally different. It's dependent on other variables. And how I wish the person from NASA could understand that.
Let me use that example you've just given.
Yeah.
You're the head of your household. You come, you summon all the members of your household in the morning and start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know what they need. You know. You don't provide it.
You don't.
So why do you call them another time and tell them?
Either way, they remain. You know what you have at household. When you are going to build a house, you are thinking about I'm going to build a house at one given time, isn't it? You're not going to build a house shorter of what your number of people need to have. So you have already used that information, which we call a tool in data, to determine the size of the house you are going to build.
Ismail Musaladu, yes, Charles, as you come in. Ismail Musaladu says, I know countries that depend on different institutions, such as hospitals, immigration, proper registration of birth, death, etc., et al. All UBOS needs to do is statistically work with this data or statistics to understand and generate information that the census is meant to do. Would like to hear from the two statisticians whether this could be feasible or even a cheaper method.
But we told them that it didn't work in Germany. It didn't work.
Okay.